Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. Okay, we're gonna wait just 30 seconds to let people trickle in. It's usually those first like few minutes of the meeting that takes a little bit for everyone to join. If you are here for the Tech to MBA panel, you're in the right place. If you are intending to join a different meeting, you should stay because this meeting's going to be great. Very excited to hear from Tori and Maz. More about breaking into an MBA from a tech background. All right, so a few logistical things as we get started. If you have not signed up for Leland already, you should. There's a QR code here that will help you get linked to the product. And then if you have not already attended the MBA week or like previous events, here's just a quick agenda of some of the things going on. So we are here Wednesday, Tech to MBA. There's still a lot of events outstanding and several that have already happened. If you've missed any of these events, no need to worry. There is recordings that will be sent out after. Okay, great. Well, here's a quick agenda of the meeting, or sorry, I guess best practices. First, ask questions in the chat. Second, RSVP for each session that you're interested in MBA week. We will be giving away different perks in different sessions. And then finally, to receive the recordings, you need to have signed up. So here's the agenda of the meeting. First, we'll do quick intros. Second, the majority of this meeting, we'll jump right into the panel, and then we'll just have some final words at the end. So let's get started on intros. I'm Mike. I will be hosting this session. I do product management here at Leland. So come from a tech background. And then a couple years ago, I was accepted to Harvard Business School through their early acceptance or deferred program. I'll likely be attending fall of 2026, but that's a hot topic, trying to figure out when the right time to matriculate is. And then on the call, we also have Amanda. She runs events at Leland, and she will be dropping links in the chat. All right, let's jump to our panelists. So Maz, why don't we start with you and then we can jump to Tori.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Mike. My name is Maz. I've been working with Leland just over a year at this point. Prior to that, as it mentions here, I've been in tech, most recently at Square, prior to that at Google, as well as a short project at Amazon as well. So pretty familiar with the industry. And, I also went to Michigan Ross. So super happy to kind of share my journey there and how I approached it. Hopefully, that'll bring some value to folks that are on this call as well.
Awesome. Great. Tori, take it away.
Yeah, hi everybody. Thanks for joining the panel today. I'm Tori. I have worked in tech the past 15 years. The past 4 years, I've been at TikTok as a PM, and before that, I spent a decade at Google. In between, I went to Harvard Business School, where I really wanted to refine my management skills to be a PM that had a better market sense and could maybe balance the soft skills with the technical skills. Yeah, before I worked in tech, I also worked in the government in the Obama White House, then the Obama for America campaign. I'm a proud first gen student and just really excited to have this conversation with you all today.
Very cool. Yeah, excited to hear your guys' thoughts. Also, I'm like very excited to host this session because I'm very curious your thoughts on some of the questions that we're going to ask. Like, does it even make sense to get an MBA from tech? And how do you position yourself? And what about post-business school recruiting? So very excited to hear both of your perspectives. All right, a quick overview of Leland, and then we're just going to jump right into it. So the goal of Leland is to help people receive all the support they need to achieve their professional aspirations. That is broken down into three specific offerings. The most impactful and like our bread and butter is one-on-one coaching. And that is because everyone is so different. And what's right for me may be different for someone else. And we really believe that the customized mentorship and coaching is where the most impact happens. However, to make it more cost efficient, we also have two other offerings. The second is a cohort-based course. where we bundle a group of people who are working towards a specific goal. We hand select several of the best coaches in that category and have them teach sessions related to that goal, and have like a crash course, everything you need to know the basics of working towards it. And then finally, we have a content library called Leland Plus that is built and maintained by the now around 2,000 coaches on Leland, that helps you get like example resumes, essays, video deep dives into common topics. All right, let's jump on. Oh, also, yes, Leland, we've been around for about 4 years now. During that time, we've helped thousands, tens of thousands of people. I'm actually a former Leland customer. So when I was applying to business school 2 years ago, I found a coach on Leland and worked with them. And then what's fun is many of these people are my friends who I've asked to use Leland or pitched Leland on. So in the middle, we have Tanner Johnson. He was one of our first customers. Noble was my classmate. I interned on the left with Jacob here, who's going to Harvard. Worked right next to this guy. Like many of these people are my friends, and so I am very, very convinced in the power of one-on-one coaching. And then one other just like quick plug about Leland. So coaching is not new. It has been around for a long time. There are plenty of firms that help with coaching. Many of those firms charge an insane amount of money. Like they charge the client like 20 grand. They pay the coach like 3 grand, and then they pocket the 17 grand. Leland's goal is we are a marketplace where you can find these coaches at a significantly lower cost. The coaches come on, and then Leland is a volume play where we operate in all these different categories. And so we just like make a small take on the transaction fees. So you get the same coaches at a cheaper rate, with like the life-changing impact. Anyway, moving on from what is Leland, let's jump into learning more about the coaches and the expert panel. So, Tori, why don't we start with you, and then Maz, I want to hear your thoughts as well. But okay, best tip for applying to an M7 MBA program.
Yeah, this is a great question. I think everybody knows that the M7 and the M20, M50 very saturated these days, especially given the job market. And I think it's an opportunity for you to really understand why you want to obtain an MBA and why you want to obtain an MBA at the specific school. So the first thing I would say is really be intentional with how you're approaching this application. Don't treat it like the Common App where you're filling out information about yourself and sending it to schools and see who accepts you. Be really intentional. Show each school why they specifically are right to help you achieve your specific MBA goals. And this takes well beyond just researching the main page of the website and looking at the college rankings. This is going into alumni interviews. It's looking on YouTube. It's trying to understand what the curriculum is like, who the professors are, what are their research focuses, how does this fit in with your overall goals and your value system. And that's honestly something that's really fun about this process to begin with. The other thing too is I think, if you're coming from tech to MBA, if you work in tech, brevity and being concise and having clarity of purpose is very important for building PRDs and building products. So that's directly correlated to an MBA application. Have a very clear why an MBA right now, and why this school, throughout your entire app. Make sure it's a very concise and clear narrative. The other one is really focus on depth over breadth. Really fine tune your story, which takes a lot of time. I'm sure we'll talk more about this. The essay is probably one of the number one things you should do now, along with test prep. Focus on maybe telling a few fine-tuned, compelling, deeply personal stories about yourself instead of trying to cover absolutely everything.
Awesome. I just build off of what Tori said, right? So I think, in tech terms, we talk a lot about like product market fit. I think it's a similar thing if you're considering, business school, going in from tech, is really to understand what is that fit, right? So both from as a person who's trying to apply and consider it, what are you trying to get out of it? As Tori mentioned, what is your ultimate goal, and how does the MBA fit in? So that's on on your side, trying to figure out and do your homework to understand what are my motivations and so on. And as you do that, then the other half of your research into the institutions, the M7 or any other program that you're considering, that's where that comes in, and that's where all of the homework that Tori mentioned also comes in, where all of your research, talking to alumni from those schools and so on, you start to quickly understand or figure out, okay, these are the schools that are the best fit based on like my experience, my background, my goals, my objectives, my location, like all of those things that kind of come into the picture, right? And I think the better that fit is, and the better that you're able to make that fit, because part of it is also just about the story you're telling, and being genuine to yourself, right? One thing is, I wouldn't recommend applying to like all of the M7 schools, because they're all so different. They all have a very different, I don't know, like characteristic or kind of person that goes there. So it's very hard that you're going to be a good fit for all of them. So I think from that perspective as well, just trying to understand what are the schools that are a really good fit for me, and they would also benefit from my expertise, my knowledge, my background, because they're also looking for people from tech, from certain kind of experiences to come in and share that and bring that network to the school. So I think just doing your homework in terms of why do you want to go to these schools, and what is the motivation just overall for an MBA, and then trying to understand which school does that, and doing the prep very early on, right? So this is not something, as Tori mentioned, you can just like wake up and apply, a month before the cycle is about to end. Sometimes it can be many months, if not a year plus, right? Because there's a lot of planning, thinking, and strategizing that goes into it. So I would recommend starting early and prepping pretty thoroughly as you're considering these schools.
That's awesome. Thank you both. I think you covered a lot of the things that uh, were really like big considerations to me. Like, what is the reason? Like, I love the example of product market fit, or like, why does this school fit into my goals? Okay, great. If you're not familiar with this, the way schools tend to think about candidates is they put them into buckets. So it's like, this is the consulting bucket, this is the nonprofit bucket, the private equity. So there is a tech bucket that people will be applying from. There's actually just a question in the chat that's like, okay, and let's include work with this, but outside of work and with my background in tech, how do I differentiate myself from other people applying with similar backgrounds? Tori, let's do both of you as well. So Tori, then Maz, and yeah, then we can keep going.
Yeah, I think one of the pitfalls I often see people doing is, rightfully so, you want to be descriptive and tell the MBA program what you've done to demonstrate your commitment. But I don't often see people in their first draft really talking about who they are and what they've built and what they've learned beyond their education, their titles, and their companies and the products that they supported. So, the first thing that I would really recommend to differentiate yourself from other applicants in big tech is really zooming in on the impact of, don't just say I worked at Google or I supported Google Maps. What was the product suite? What were the features? What did you learn about the user that informed said feature? What was the process of building and implementing it? What did you learn? How does it inform your leadership style and your career goals? With that, tell a really human story. Who are you beyond these tech companies and these titles? Because if you read the case studies, and you really dissect not only the financials of the company, you get to know the CEO and the people building these companies and these products, and they want to understand what motivates them. So really, shedding light on your leadership values, pointing out any conflicts and resolutions and the result of that, and any other value driven decisions are really memorable in the application. And just remember, for a lot of technical projects that you've worked on, those are rarely achieved on your own. I think that's something that's such a powerful example to fine tune on for an MBA program, because you'll see that it's not just an education you're getting, it's a community on campus of people you're going to learn with, collaborate with, how can you demonstrate that you're going to add value to the MBA program? You can easily do that by looking back on your product suite and really fine tune how you actually built the products that you have listed on your resume. And then the other thing is really have a future focus. So not only what unique lens are you hoping to bring to the MBA program when you walk on campus, hopefully next fall, but what are you hoping to bring to your next company or the next venture you build with the skills that you're accruing in an MBA program?
Gotcha. Yeah, I think I would start off by emphasizing the first part as well. Is really thinking about your impact at the organizations and how you communicate that. Trying to quantify it, and perhaps customizing there a little bit because different programs, like different business programs, value different aspects as well to some extent. Some might be purely about the numbers, where it's like, yeah, I help generate X dollars of revenue, right? And that's what you want to have front and center. For some other programs, maybe it's about like leadership and the human element. So really maybe emphasizing on that part, as Tori mentioned. Hey, I worked with so many teams. I led, a team of X people. So I think a lot of that is also dependent on trying to pull different aspects from our work background, just because we've all done amazing stuff, and most of the people that are applying, if not everybody, has done amazing stuff in their past, right? So again, when you're talking about differentiating, this goes back to the fit question on how do you differentiate yourself by showing a better fit, right? So I think that's another element as well that I would pull in. And then the last thing I would talk about, again, yeah, echoing what Tori said, is what is your journey after the MBA, right? And I think that's where you can also differentiate yourself, because you may be coming in from tech, just like a lot of people, but where you want to end up may be very different, right? So some people may be interested in entrepreneurship, right? What kind of businesses that you might want to explore and so on. And again, that goes back into the fit, because some schools are, very well known and renowned for entrepreneurial kind of ventures and initiatives and the ecosystem there. And for some others, it may be like, venture capital or private equity or any other like consulting. So I think all of those are ways to really, share a story that is personal, but also talks to your motivations as to what you want to get out of it. And because the schools are also doing that math, right? Like, is this something that we can help them achieve, right? And if not, they'll maybe shy away from doing that, just because they know that this may not be the best fit for what you're trying to look for.
Yeah, totally. I think a big mistake I see people make as they're applying is not understanding that the admissions committee cares a lot about yield numbers. And so if you can't build a good case for why this school fits into your long-term goals, like that school specifically, it's really hard to get accepted. And yeah, part of that is like, what are you doing after business school? What's my story? What's my angle? Great thoughts. Okay, so I want to talk about this. If I work at a tech startup, what's the best way to frame my experience and goals for the future? Maz, or Tori, yeah, take it away, and then we can go to Maz.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, a lot of startups, the MBA program may not be familiar with it unless they're really close to the heart of Silicon Valley. But if it's like a seed or Series A, just make sure that you're not making assumptions in terms of the title of your role, the actual mission statement of the startup. Use that as an opportunity to state the obvious, and then beyond, the obvious, really fine tune and focus on the scope of your work. I actually think startups are a great primer for an MBA program for a variety of reasons. One is cross-functional collaboration, communication. You're wearing multiple hats. How are you currently doing that? I think the danger with, again, just listing your title at a startup, a lot of people have inflated titles in the startup. It's a 10-person team. You might be head of product. What does that actually mean? What are you doing day to day? I think the beauty of a startup, again, is that it is a horizontal structure. So you have a lot of stories that you can tell about being tested, about really validating what you want to build and how an MBA program can really fit into this, and to really connect the dots about how this has really shaped you into the person and the leader that you are, and what you plan to do next on campus. I also would say one more thing in that um, building a venture, working in tech is a very popular pursuit in a lot of M7 and beyond MBA programs. So this is also an opportunity in terms of exhibiting how you can positively contribute to your peers and the greater MBA community when you join. So maybe you can be a mentor in the tech club, or join a venture idea in the iLab at HBS. Maybe you could help your peers do mock interviews for their summer internships, or connect the dots with people in VC. So really think about how you can not only benefit from an MBA program, but contribute to it with the startup experience. And also, again, be very explicit into what the startup does, what your role is.
Yeah, plus one to the latter part, right? The value that you're bringing in is going to be super, helpful for folks around you. So if you can kind of index on that and emphasize that for the team, that's great, because again, that builds that case for bringing you in. I think besides that is also just there is a pretty natural progression for folks that have done kind of or doing like tech startups to consider doing an MBA. So I think that story should be a good one to tell, right? Like just like Tori mentioned, there's lots of areas where you're getting pulled in. MBAs tend to be, more generalized, and then obviously you can pick your adventure as you're going in. So I think just really being able to tell that story and pick specific maybe instances where you felt like, okay, hey, I could have used, some more, I don't know, like marketing insight, or I could have used some more strategy kind of insight on this specific thing that I dealt with. And I think bringing that story and making it more personal and more valuable really connects the dots for the admissions committee as well, to say, okay, this is what they're missing, and that's why this program is going to give them what they're missing, right? So in that aspect, you're doing two things in one, which is, you're telling your own individual, custom, right, unique story as to why the MBA program is the best for you. And then you're also showing to them why it's the best fit as well, right? Given all of your challenges and what you're looking for. So I think that kind of twofold benefit is what I would emphasize and focus on as a tech startup person.
Yeah, I think you guys nailed it. I applied to my MBA program from a startup, and I think there are just like funny things that you need to think through of like they're not going to know what this is at all, and so I got to make sure they understand it. And yeah, great. Okay, this is a big one. So this question's been asked a couple times in the chat, but it's really like, how do I show the school that I want to get an MBA, and like why now, why this school, especially if you're coming from a technical background? Tori, let's start with you again.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think you're at an advantage in a way. The amount of problem solving and complexity and XFN and purpose involved in building a product and working in a technical role, I think it really sets you up just like working in a startup for an MBA program. So I think the first thing is don't sell yourself short, and understand that these are all strengths. So the first thing I would recommend is really be proactive and bridge the gap between, maybe you're in a very specialized technical role, or maybe, you're in business operations supporting tech teams and XFN to implement a product. So really, explain the transition from solving technical problems into wanting to solve greater business or leadership problems for the company or the startup or the team that you're a part of now. You might be surprised. You see a lot of those similar patterns in storytelling and examples in the cases that you'll read as well. So don't sell yourself short. I think, again, like having a technical background is an absolute advantage because it does emulate a lot of the problem solving you'll see. And also just, really, I think this is a really great opportunity to show a pattern of the curriculum and the lessons that you'll learn and the expectations of being an active participant in an MBA program. You've already taken on likely PM leadership strategy roles and working on a technical product or a product in general. So really make the case that you've already been on this path and you want to build upon it. And then I think, you could also really paint a vision for marrying tech and business together. So what impact do you want to build that requires you to both have tech fluency and business acumen? So for me, for example, I came from Google engineering, and I really wanted to balance out the technical experience I had with better understanding principles of finance and accounting and market research and operations to really best serve users and understand how to be a holistic product manager. And I'm really happy I pursued an MBA program as a result. So there's so much potential there to really sell why you would be a great fit and why you need an MBA now.
Yeah, that's so good. One quick comment before you go Maz. When I was at Atlassian, they had this small APM cohort. The year before me, there was 3 people. My year there was 4, and then they moved it up to 6. The year before me, one person got accepted to Harvard. My year, there was 2 of us. Then the next 2 years, there was 2 people both years. So it was like 20% of of the class of people, or like 20 to 30% were getting accepted to Harvard. Like Harvard loved Atlassian APMs. And I think part of that is exactly what you were describing of I think there's 2 parts. The first is the nature of the role and the nature of your background makes it a really clear answer for why you'd be a good fit for the school. And then I also think there's like sometimes a negative stigma about MBAs in tech, which makes so some of your competition who are very qualified people don't apply. And then you can apply, get accepted into these great schools, and then have like all the benefits of the learnings and the branding and whatever that benefit your career. And so to me, it felt like this awesome arbitrage opportunity of like, I fit what the schools are looking for. I'm going to get the benefits. And a lot of my peers aren't seeing this. So I definitely agree that I think there's like a huge advantage in tech. Okay, Maz, take it away.
Sure. I think this may be an unpopular opinion, but if you do have a technical background, I'd say if that's your ultimate goal is to stay within kind of the tech world and grow technically, you may not necessarily need an MBA. Like I feel like you could do a lot of like on-the-job learning and growing, and you could still have like the people management aspect that you can kind of train on and work on, and get a general understanding of business. So I think naturally this question is going to be more for folks that are already thinking about, okay, how do I expand beyond, being a software engineer or a technical product manager or technical program manager, right? So as you're thinking about it, the story again it isn't like why are you trying to sell them on it? It's gonna come pretty naturally in terms of, hey, I did this project and I felt like I wanted to learn more about the business aspect, or I don't know, like how setting a roadmap for like the next 5 years works from a finance perspective, or a marketing perspective. So really trying to expand outside of like the purely technical background that you're amazing at, right? So I think again, it should be a natural kind of story that you can tell, because I'm presuming the reason you're doing it, and of course, everybody has their own reason, is because you don't want to stick around like from a purely technical background or grow up the ladder as a purely technical lead or VP or whatever, right? So I think again, as you're kind of considering it and doing your research as we discussed, naturally you're going to start coming across the story of, okay, I have all of this technical ability, but what I want to do is, much greater, much broader, much more agnostic of technology, maybe specifically. So all of those things start coming into, telling and creating that narrative, that hopefully will help you sell yourself to the business goal.
Yeah, that's such a good response. Like if the truth is that you shouldn't get an MBA given your long-term goals, it's going to be really hard to build a narrative for why you should get an MBA. That makes so much sense, but it's crazy how hard it is to connect those dots sometimes. Um, great. Okay. This leads really well. So why don't we do reverse order? Maz, I want to hear your thoughts again, then we can go to Tori. But if my plan is to stay in tech, let's actually change the second part, which is how do I know if I should even get an MBA? Like under what conditions does it make sense? And you kind of talked about this a little bit. And then in what ways would like just staying in tech make the most sense?
Yeah, again, we're going to keep on saying the same thing, right? Like it's understanding what is your ultimate objective, right? And this one, in this question, it says it's to stay in tech, but obviously that's also very broad, right? Like, hey, is it to grow as a leader in, product management? Is it to get into like tech strategy? Is it, what does that exactly mean? And again, so the first question should be, yeah, like, is an MBA going to help me get there, right? So the very first thing is to truly understand what is your ultimate goal and what are you trying to get to, right? Regardless of what's happening with business school or not. And then once you have a good understanding of that, and in order to get to a good understanding, it's also encouraged to like talk to people in those positions. Really do your homework again. Talk to people at the companies that you might want to be targeting and the roles that you might want to be targeting. Really doing that research to understand, hey, okay, this is what I think I want, but let me go ahead and validate it, right? So once all of that is set, then you can consider, okay, is there any kind of graduate school, business school, is that going to help me get there? For example, maybe you talk to a lot of people and they're like, yeah, I was thinking about doing this, and I felt there was a lot of resistance for me moving up the ladder, and I realized there are a lot of people getting a graduate degree or a business degree, so that kind of validates your hypothesis a little bit, right? And as you're thinking about that and you make the decision that yes, a business school is going to help me get to that, then I think the second part of like what schools are best for you are also going to be dictated again. If you've already done that homework and you say, okay, hey, I want to stay in tech, but I want to get into like venture capital, or hey, I want to stay in tech, but I want to get into like whatever that vertical is. They'll start informing what schools that you're going to consider, because there may be natural fits, right? So if you say, hey, like I want to be in Silicon Valley, I want to be in the Bay Area, there's natural fits for the places like Stanford or Haas, or schools like that, or in California, like going to UCLA as well. There's a big kind of hub in Irvine, for example, for tech companies and so on. So like they'll start dictating it. Obviously, in Boston and Harvard and a lot of the schools here, there's big hubs here in terms of biotech and what you're trying to get into. So I think those will start dictating what schools might be the best fit, just considering again where you want to get to and what your objectives are.
Yeah. So I think, yeah, I think a lot of that was said really well. I just to kind of piggyback off of it. I think I would look really into the recruiting ecosystem from schools. So maybe like really broadly look and see the alumni pages and student pages to understand stats of what type of student has attended this program from what industry, and what type of companies and industries are hiring these students after graduation. Yeah, the student pages, alumni pages, admissions pages really shed a lot of light on that, along with publications like Poets and Quants. And then you might be able to kind of connect the dots and understand what schools have strong pipelines for your target companies or your target industries. Also, along with that, the alumni network. So, really do your research on LinkedIn and elsewhere on recent grads from certain programs to understand if there's a pattern as well of, are there certain roles that where companies are recruiting X type of student or X type of school from. And then, again, I think this goes back to the first question we both answered of really make sure you do your research on the right MBA program, and then also why exactly you want to attend it beyond the name of it. Because every MBA program is different. So are you looking for a program that can better prepare you to run a startup, or has a great pipeline for PE firms? The data and the signals are out there, and it's really up to you to really do the searching to understand what best matches both how you learn and what industry you'd like to get into.
Great thoughts. Okay, this is one that actually, let's skip this one because I feel like we've spent a lot of time thinking about like you got to figure out what your goals are. I want to talk a little bit about recommenders. This is something that people usually feel very nervous about because it's one of the few parts of your application that you can't control. Tori, let's go back to you. any thoughts on who your recommenders should be and how you should think about preparing them?
Yeah, I would really caution people from thinking that the most senior individual on your team is the best recommender. MBA programs are not marking off the prestige of the title of the individual. They want to hear from individuals that you've been tested with that can really speak to your potential and your past impact and your character. So this could be your tech lead, this can be your TPM, it could be your direct manager, it doesn't have to be. But I would maybe caution you from having your VP or, the director of product management who maybe doesn't work day to day with you write your recommendation, because they may write a positive one, but they may not write a very detailed one that gives the signals that an MBA program is looking for. So that being said, I think that being as descriptive as possible and helping these recommenders is key, because they have jobs and lives and they're probably filling out other recommendations. So really make sure you give them as much context as possible. Write a document, share a little bit about yourself, key examples of products you've worked on the past few years, other companies you've been at, the impact at those companies, reasons why you want to pursue an MBA program, and other character factors about yourself that they can pull from. And then don't forget, make sure you ask them early. If you know you want to apply for an MBA program today for next year, ask them tomorrow, or just give them a heads up that you might ask them. But really make sure that you respect their time, and that'll also ensure that they have a quality recommendation to submit. And then really, I want to also, I mentioned giving them context in a one pager. Also, that comes hand in hand with making sure that you're not coaching them. Asking them to give you a recommendation and then just giving basic information about yourself and the details on how to submit is ethically and legally really the extent of what you should be doing with the recommender. Otherwise, you're essentially ghostwriting your recommendation, and MBA programs really do pick up on that, and they do penalize that. So just be mindful. But you can balance that out with giving the recommenders context.
Yeah, all great things. Not much to add to what Tori said, but I'll probably just echo, what was mentioned. One is it's important to have almost like a two-way fit with with the person, the recommender, in terms of they should be super familiar with you and your work, and you should also have a good working relationship with them, right? So I think that's important, just because they may have questions, they may have doubts. Even if it's just like logistical, you want to be, you want to be able to address it pretty quickly. I think the second part of, providing one pager, absolutely, providing that context for them is crucial. Sometimes, you're closer to the numbers or the impact that you've had versus somebody in your organization. So, being able to share like, hey, I helped grow their revenue X%, or I helped launch this product that brought in so many customers. I think that that's helpful, and that I wouldn't imagine that's frowned upon to provide quantified kind of values as well. And then again, just being strategic, again, keeping in mind like what schools you're applying to in that one pager, just being mindful of what kind of projects you want to highlight and showcase, right? And what are the things that you'd highlight to your recommender as well, just because that could factor into what we talked about earlier, where you want to present the best version of yourself, and what aligns with your goals and the school that you're applying to as well. So I think that that's something I would also recommend in those conversations.
Yeah, I think you guys both nailed it. There's a question in the chat that asked, what if their recommender doesn't speak English? I actually do think that writing ability is a factor that you should be looking for. Obviously, like if there's no one else, like there's things you can do to help them write well. Like there's, editors and translators, etc. But I remember when I was trying to pick my recommenders, there was two people who, from like a relationship standpoint, both could have done it, but one of them was a really good writer and was frankly was more verbose in giving praise. And then the other person was much more conservative in how they spoke. And so I picked the verbose person because I felt like even though they both maybe felt the same about me, one of them would talk about me in a very different way. Okay, great. Well, let's talk a little bit about essays. I know we've touched on this a little bit, but I wanted to hear if there's any specific tips you guys had on how you approach the essay section of the application.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump into this. I spent a lot of time on my application, and the essays, I probably spent 6 months on my MBA essays. A part of it, honestly, it almost became a journal for me. It was comforting to work in the daytime and go back to my home office and really start kind of diving into what drives me, and what makes me who I am, and how does this tie to an MBA program and my career goals. So I think you might see, it might be intimidating at first, but I think you might see that this is a very sorry, transformative experience for you. So the first thing that I would really recommend doing is starting with reflection. You can look at your resume, but from there, look at a blank piece of paper and start kind of writing down anything from what you think your value system is to what are key moments in your life that you look back on, maybe even before a product launch, or when you were in a product review and something that somebody said that you admired or reminded you about a mentor earlier in life, or moments of adversity that really shaped you. Kind of really, it can be messy, but just start spitballing and write down kind of anything in a stream of conscious that you can think of that you think really molded you to who you are today. Little by little, you can kind of start cherry picking and stack ranking and elaborating on that. It's going to be a fairly messy process, but it's really important that you iterate and you really dive deep, because the best essays come from introspection and not just perfection or listing your accomplishments. They can just look at your resume if they wanted to see that. And again, like this kind of goes along with it, be personal, don't be performative. They're looking for a vulnerability, especially in a place like GSB, that builds connection, that helps them understand maybe why you did X and Y on your resume and why you want an MBA program. So really do yourself a favor and don't just list things about yourself. Really start exploring who you are and explain why you are the person applying to the MBA program today. Also, just really make sure that you anchor this to your future. Make sure that your story reinforces, not only where you've been and what led you to this moment, but where you want to go and why an MBA program is the right moment for it now.
Yeah, I think of these essays as kind of like a story about your life in a way, where you're kind of sharing where you've been and what shaped you, as Tori said. So I think that's the starting point. I would also recommend is just like looking back and maybe identifying, key moments in your life, even if it was like during childhood or throughout your journey, right? And using those, and again, maybe initially it has nothing to do with MBA and business school and all of that, right? But as you're kind of doing that introspection, that reflection, you'll start seeing like themes and patterns, hopefully emerge, that you can weave into your, your essay. So that should be, kind of a big part of your essay as well. Like, what has your motivation been? What brings you to where you are? What makes you who you are, right? And then the second part of, tying that to, and weaving it into like, why are you considering business school, is also more broadly not just business school, but like what are your goals, right? So where have you started and where do you want to go? And I think that's where, a good essay kind of communicates that effectively to say, okay, these are very personal, very memorable kind of stories about this person. So again, one thing that does is just like obviously helps you stand out as a person who's done XYZ. That's what shaped you. And then the second half of, okay, this is where this person is trying to get to, and hopefully naturally kind of drawing the kind of the connection from, okay, how does business school help them get to these goals, considering all of the kind of the reflection that they've shared. So I think that's important. Again, if you can think of, I don't know how like popular vision boards are now, but it's almost like, reading your essay should be able to give you like your organized, view of like what that vision board would look like, what has shaped you over your life, and where you're trying to get to, right? So I think a little bit of both. Maybe that's hopefully that'll help people who are more visual.
Those comments are so great. It's really funny how much work these essays actually are for how few words um, they take. I submitted draft like 21D of my essay. Like I wrote so many drafts just because, like you mentioned, it's like very thought-provoking and soul-searching to tell your story in a compelling way and takes time to do that. Maybe some people are more introspective or thoughtful than I am and can get there faster. Uh, but for me, it took a lot out of me. And then the other, tip that both from my experience and people that I've worked with is trying to force a narrative that's not real almost never works. Like I've seen people who are pulling at straws trying to make this sound good to the admissions committee when in reality, the authentic answer portrayed well is always so much better than the inauthentic answer that matches the admissions committee's like what they're looking for. Okay, well, we're running generally low on time, so want to move to final question, which is, uh, after everything we've talked about, are there any final tips that you would recommend to people applying or interested in applying to MBA programs?
Yeah, I think one is underestimating the process. MBA apps are not just job applications or LinkedIn direct applies. This is really personal storytelling. It requires a lot of collaboration with recommenders, with testing facilities, with yourself to make sure that this is the best version and reflection of who you are. So not only start early, be really present and intentional and structured so you could actually meet deadlines. The second, like Mike just mentioned, being too generic in your essays. And I think the other thing along with that that we touched upon as well is being too generic in both why an MBA and why this specific school. Related to that, don't forget an MBA is not just about you, it's about the 300 plus other people that you're going to be sitting in a classroom with, walking down the hallways with. And so they're going to be thinking about you and how you fit into this mosaic of a community. So keep that in mind in terms of, am I somebody that is ready and excited to help my peers to contribute to classroom conversations? And with that, what experience do I have and value systems I can harness in the MBA program that will not only help myself, but will help others in the community? And yeah, I think the other thing as well is, and this is related to Leland coaching, just be careful who you get feedback from. People may be very biased or not have a relevant experience to give you very pointed feedback, especially if it's like a parent. It may be difficult for you to be very vulnerable and share a copy of your essay, or they may be biased and just give you overly positive feedback. And I think that's an opportunity to work with an impartial coach that can walk you through this often kind of complex and confusing and emotional process and give you very direct feedback to help you succeed.
Yeah, plus one to all of those things. I think, the first thing is just starting early. and not rushing things. If you do get to a point where you're in a bind and it's almost like, hey, should I really push through this and get to it, or should I just wait another year? I would probably err on the side of just waiting another year, just because obviously, like, you know yourself best, but again, you don't want to rush it and try to push through something just because there is a deadline, right? So there's always an opportunity to apply, next year and so on. And you'll probably do yourself, more justice if you do that introspection, if you do it right. I think that's the other part of it, is look at it, even, just the whole process of the application itself should help you learn a lot about yourself and your motivation and your goals. And that in itself can be super valuable, right? Maybe after all that, you decide that, hey, an MBA isn't the best thing for me because it doesn't help me achieve my goals and so on. And that itself is also a valuable output, right? Because you would have done that introspection, you would have figured out what your motivations are, and then you'd be able to make a more informed decision about next steps, in terms of whether you want to go through it or not. If you do decide on going ahead with it, yeah, do all of your due diligence. Make sure you're understanding the fit with the school you're providing, or kind of your story is authentic. You are telling people who you are, and also making it easy for the AdCom to see how this person is going to get to where they want to get to, through all of the resources and benefits and all of those things that come with the school. So being able to tell that story, pretty compelling way as well is super helpful.
Great. Thanks, Maz. Okay. Well, thank you so much to our panelists. Very much appreciate you carving time out of your very, very busy days to share some of your expertise. And then thank you to everyone who's been dropping questions in the chat. I apologize that we didn't have more time to get to all of them. Overall, though, I think the general advice is, like, there's so much nuance to so many of these things, specifically for school admissions, where the subject is you, and like your background, your goals, what you're looking for just is different than everyone else. So feel free to reach out to these coaches or any of the other coaches on Leland to get more situation dependent feedback or advice and mentorship. So you can scan this QR code that will take you to their profiles. I believe Amanda from the Leland team has also been dropping links to their profiles in the chat. So you can schedule intro calls to get to know them there. And then if you have any other questions about Leland more broadly, you can set up a call with the Leland team here. We have a team of experts who help you get matched to the right coaches for you, given your background. And then if you haven't already, let's send some love to our panelists in the chat and thank them for carving time out of their day. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
Well,
everyone.